Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to 3-Point Play. Ben Axelrod, Jay Crawford coming to you live from WKYC Studios. Just to take you to break the fourth wall here, I emailed Jay this morning. I said, what's good? What's on your mind? And your mind, as usual, there was something at the front of it.
Yeah, probably wasn't something that would jump out as a major sports topic because it's been hashed over and rehashed over a lot. But I was really thinking a lot yesterday about the Astros cheating scandal and how I think everybody's in agreement baseball just swung and missed on doling out of the punishment. And I think what they've done, and this is an unintended consequence of their reaction or lack of action against the players to the scandal, they have left it into the hands of other teams and other players to sort of self-police the game.
Right.
In other words, everybody that was involved in this cheating scandal, from a player standpoint, their lives go on. It's now up to the fans, and it's up to the opposing team to dispense justice however they see fit. And we've already seen that at spring training games, the fans have been brutal to these Astros players. I was tracking, how many times have they been hit by pitch? And up until Saturday, they had led baseball in most hit by pitches. You can read into that what you will.
It's a small sample size.
Very small sample size. So they had been hit 7 times. Over the weekend, the Astros, or the Cardinals actually had an 8th player that's been hit by a pitch.
Yeah.
So I didn't track it yesterday. I don't know where those totals stand right now.
Or how that compares to past spring trainings.
And
What's a lot?
And I dismiss it because I looked at the 7 players that were hit by a pitch, and Bregman was hit, and Altuve was hit. The other 5 are low-level minor leaguers that have no chance of making the team or weren't here the last couple of years with the Astros.
I do think Altuve was hit, though, his first at-bat. Maybe the
he
first
was,
pitch
and I think
saw.
everybody was like, uh-oh,
right.
Here we go.
And there was kind of a look from the pitcher.
It was an off-speed pitch.
Yeah.
First of all, I know from experience, if you hit somebody with an off-speed pitch, you're not sending much of a message at all. Secondly, it's a lot more difficult to hit someone with an off-speed pitch because obviously you've got to accurately understand the trajectory of where it's going to go, how it's going to hit him, and you also give him a great deal of time to get out of the way.
Right.
So if in my experience, when I've been hit and it was intentional, and I hit someone it was intentional, it was fastball. Right. You deliver the message loud and clear. You leave little chance for the hitter to get out of the way. And as a hitter, you have a little chance to get out of the way of a fastball if it's thrown in the right spot. So I don't really want to read too much into the fact that they've been hit more than any other team up until Saturday. I just think that's just a statistical blip. What I will say is once the season comes around, I think everybody's going to be tracking this.
Yeah.
I also think there's an inordinate amount of pressure on whoever the opening day starter is against the Astros in their home opener, season opener, because everybody in baseball is going to be watching to see what happens. I also think that Major League Baseball has now, by leaving it up to the fans and the opposing players, they've opened this kind of crazy scenario where baseball may have to actually issue some sort of statement to umpires that says, if in your view you think that a player is being hit intentionally, you don't even need a warning. If you think that it is absolutely intentional from jump, you can eject a player. They've now put it into the umpire's hands and into the fans' hands and into the opposing players' hands to sort of self-police what I call the single largest team cheating scandal in the history of baseball and maybe in sports. This was a collective team effort to cheat. And for all of the teams that were affected by it, and the Indians were one of them,
right?
Poor Dodgers, they have to be sitting there scratching their head saying, what about us?
Poor Clayton Kershaw.
Clayton Kershaw.
I mean, his legacy.
His postseason legacy is stained by a team that knowingly and now admittedly cheated. So I don't know that they can revisit this, but I will just say that Major League Baseball has created a situation that is going to get ugly during the course of this regular season. At some point, it's going to spill over.
Yeah, I do wonder, first you mentioned the fans. I don't think that's going to change. I think they'll be booed from March 26th all the way through whenever their season ends. I think
agree.
On the road, they are that team. They are the villains. They are the LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Miami Heat. I remember actually 1996, I think, was the season after Roberto Alomar spit on the umpire and did his tour of the stadiums. I remember being at Jacobs Field watching games. I don't remember boos that loud.
I'd never
ever.
heard. I hadn't either.
I mean, deafening boos.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I think it's going to be like that, and especially for guys like Altuve and especially Bregman, I don't see that changing. When it comes to the other teams, when it comes to the players, I do wonder if there's going to be some fatigue at some point. If this will carry the same weight in late March, in April, that it will carry in July. If at some point it will tire out with other players.
It may, and I think I think this is inevitable. There will be players that are hit intentionally.
Yes.
They will know that it's intentional, and now you increase the likelihood of a brawl. And so what happens then? So the reason I think that this is still an issue is because baseball's decision to take no action against the players or to put no asterisk next to this World Series title, what they've done is they've created a host of unintended problems that we're going to see manifest themselves throughout baseball's regular season in hit by pitches, in fan and possible player altercations.
Yeah.
At some point, one of these players is going to snap.
Yeah.
After hearing something for the 100th time and they can't ignore it any longer. I don't want to see a situation where, and you know what, this is almost good because now you have the protective netting that goes all the way around. I think in one respect that might be actually beneficial here because I think at some point a fan is going to say the wrong thing to the player who's going to have heard that for the 100th time.
Yeah.
And where is their breaking point? So because baseball didn't punish the team or the players, they've now left it in the hands of opposing pitchers and the fans, and at some point I believe the umpires. And it's going to be the storyline of this coming baseball season. Now, baseball, another unintended consequences is that it may improve ratings.
I mean, I think it's improved attention.
It absolutely is ratcheted up
what that's worth for ratings or for money and revenue, I don't know. But
I don't either.
I've talked more about a non-local team as far as baseball at this point in the offseason than I can remember since the late 90s.
I think that's probably the case in every Major League Baseball market. It still has hot traction on Twitter.
Completely.
Fans are outraged. There have been all kinds of possible scenarios thrown out as to what Major League Baseball could have done. I think what they've done was the absolute worst possible thing they could have done. The collateral damage of this scandal was essentially 3 managers, one of which I believe was guilt by association.
As far as
well, in Houston, I think there were people trying to stand up and say we can't do this, and it was bigger than he was, and it gobbled him up. I don't know that he'll work again. I don't. I don't know that Coro will work again.
He seems like the
I don't know
least
that
likely.
Beltran will work again.
Yeah.
I just don't know because now imagine, and we talked about this one other time. Imagine you're the general man or you're the owner of the pick a team, Milwaukee Brewers.
Sure.
And you really, really want to hire Carlos Beltran as your manager. That's a tough sell.
It's a really tough
How
sell.
do you stand at the podium and say, of all of the possible people to run my franchise, one of 30 jobs in Major League Baseball, I believe that somebody whose legacy is stained by a cheating scandal is the right guy. Come on in, Carlos. Like that's
especially a guy with no managerial experience.
Right, exactly.
Alex Cora won a World Series, but that's the other shoe that still needs to drop is we still don't have the findings of the Red Sox investigation.
We don't, and I think they're going to – I think they're going to find the same thing they found in Houston because essentially he took the same system or a similar system from Houston.
He was the bench
where
coach.
He was the bench coach with him to Boston, and no surprise, the Astros won it cheating in 17. The Red Sox won it in 18. I've had this conversation with players, fans, and even upper high people in management in baseball franchises. And it's really, there's a mix, and here's the dilemma. Which is more advantageous to success, steroids or knowing what's coming? I'm sorry. I know steroids help you get that extra 15 feet that turn 40 fly balls into 40 home runs. I get that. I still surmise, and from all the players that I've talked to, all of the players believe what I believe. Knowing the answer to the test is the single biggest advantage you can have as a hitter.
Yeah.
And so when you know what's coming, the guesswork is out. And when you take the guesswork out, that's what really separates Hall of Famers from everyday average players, is that extra 30 or 40 points on the batting average, those extra 15 or 20 home runs every season. When you know what's coming.
Well, think about Altuve, all the RBIs he got, even if he wasn't participating, from guys getting on base before him.
Yeah,
during that MVP season.
The biggest fascination I have with this year is to compare the stats of the Houston Astros individually and collectively from last year 18, from 17. I want to see, are these guys the real McCoy? Are they really that good? Because I do believe they're all very good players. But again, the difference between a very good player and a Hall of Fame player is so minute. And if you're talking about, I like to put it in percentages. If you succeed with a base hit 28% of the time, you're a pretty good player. You're probably an all-star a number of times in your career. Now, just succeed 2 percentage points greater, from 28% to 30%.
Right.
In most realms of society, 2 percentage points is a non-factor. In baseball, 240, you're fighting for your job. 260, you're a serviceable everyday player, but probably not on a contender. 280, you're in the all-star conversation. 300, you're a major leaguer. You're for 20 years. Possibly you're a Hall of Famer. And so the slim difference between these numbers, 24, 26, 28, and 30%, you're going to tell me that not knowing the answers to the quiz, not knowing what pitch is coming, is worth 2 or maybe 4 percentage points?
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things too. It's you know, the whole scheme was set up to let batters know when the breaking ball was coming or the off-speed pitch was coming. That also means they know when it's not coming.
Sure.
That means they know when the heat's coming. And,
Absolutely.
And that's when you can have some of your most advantageous situations.
And a lot of the home runs that I remember, the big home runs, came off those fastballs. If you're sitting dead red and you know it's coming, I'm telling you, the percentages of connecting solidly with a fastball when you know it's going to be thrown go up. It allows you to throw your hands and react in real time, as opposed to picking up spin. Oh, it's a fastball. In that 1/8 of a second between pitch recognition and firing the muscles, oftentimes that fastball's by you. So I just think that it was such a huge advantage for Major League Baseball to basically say to the players, "You're good. World Series intact, reputation's intact. We're gonna go after these other people." I thought that was a joke.
So this is where, though, I think it gets messy. Is there's conflicting reports or thoughts about could they even punish the players if they wanted to, because labor laws, because of the MLB Players Union, because of a number of things, because they gave the players immunity. Basically, when they set out,
which I think was the biggest mistake they made.
They went into this thing knowing they weren't going to be punishing
what they needed.
the players.
Why did they need to give anybody immunity? That's what I don't understand. They had a player who was on the team who laid it all out for them. This is what we did. This is when we started it. This is how we did it. Here are the goods.
But so that's where it gets messy in terms of what else could they have done. Now, where I think it gets fascinating is...
Well, for starters, you can taint the World Series.
Well, you can, I think that would have been an obvious place to start.
I think that would have been, when I first heard that the player had come out, and even though he was a pitcher, even though he was a pitcher and probably wasn't as involved in it as the hitters were,
he was a little disgruntled. He was a disgruntled player.
Absolutely. But the fact that you had a whistleblower who came out and said, "This is what we were doing this," and by the way, it came out as a shock to nobody inside baseball.
Well, that's the thing. They're such a perfect villain, because I was down in Houston for the World Series. They're such an arrogant franchise.
Oh, they are.
That's
Even
when all
now they are.
Right, that's when all the stuff with the assistant GM was going on when he got thrown out of the clubhouse.
Absolutely.
Just an organization that around baseball is universally despised.
Right.
And then I think, where this really blew up in terms of public perception was the apology or lack thereof. Really, everything was kind of going along, and then when they come out on the first day of spring training.
By the way, after having a team meeting on how they were going to handle this.
Well, worst team meeting.
Like, they needed a PR expert who came in there and said, "Guys, here's how we're going to handle this, okay?
Right.
The entire sport hates your guts. You need to fall hard on this."
Well, that's where I think baseball really miscalculated this
I think
whole
they
thing.
did, too. I think that's exactly right. They did not expect the rage from the fans. But look, just as in the steroid scandal, when we were guessing, is what we're looking at real? If you don't know if it's professional wrestling or boxing, there's a real disconnect in there. The people that watch and enjoy and love wrestling, they're in on the gig. They know what it is.
That's me.
Well, you know what it is. You don't, for a second,
I'm in on it.
think that any of this isn't planned out very methodically.
Right.
Imagine for a second if you went to a baseball game with that same notion. Well, one team knows what pitches are coming.
Oh, Trevor Bauer lent voice to this. He was on CC Sabathia's podcast last week about when they went to Houston for the 2018 ALDS, they knew they were up against something.
They knew that they knew it.
Yeah, and you go back, you look at the quotes Mike Clevenger gave, I think after Game 3, after the sweep, something to the effect of they were more prepared than us. And people thought they were taking shots at Terry Francona and the Indians.
Yeah.
No, they were trying to hint at, these guys literally know what pitch is coming.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think my timeline is right here. The Astros were implicated in cheating in the ALDS against the Indians.
That was when
that was in 17.
That was in 18.
Or was that 18?
That was in 18 when the employee was found with the cell phone.
Yes.
With an Astros credential. It was the Indians and the Red Sox both reported him, actually.
Right.
And so that's what Trevor Bauer said is, if they're this brazen about that, about having a team employee hanging around our dugout taking pictures, what do they actually care about? What are they trying to hide?
What kind of information are they getting? How are they disseminating it? How are they retrieving it, relaying it to the players? I think we all knew at that time, where there's smoke, there's fire. And baseball was really quick to come out and say, we did an investigation, there is nothing to see here. So that was their first misstep. Now, because they knew they had a problem on their hands. They knew that you had one team that had won decisively a series.
Yes.
And by the way, you're not doing this on every pitch of every game in the regular season. You're just not. This was a very good team to begin with.
Well, and it was a home and away thing.
Yeah,
too.
But what it did was it took a very good team with very good players, and it put them into extraordinarily good. And the way they did that was by tipping pitches. Even if you only tip them in certain spots, tie game, 7th inning, 2-2, run around second, let's employ it. But the advantage that you get to that is ungodly, even if you're not using it throughout the whole game.
It's a cheat code.
You're cheating. No matter how you slice this is, in my view, I want somebody to challenge me on this. I think it's the biggest cheating scandal in professional sports. I don't know. I can't think of another one.
Well, so steroids is the one that's getting brought up. But this is where it's different, is there were guys on every team. It wasn't one systematic team. It was guys on every team gaining individual advantages. It wasn't a coordinated scheme.
Even with steroids, again, per my conversations with players that I've had, and what I've gleaned from that is you definitely have a strength advantage with steroids. There is no doubt about it. You still have to hit the ball.
Right.
You still have to guess what pitch is coming and guess correctly. So there's still a lot more variables. There's a lot of things that could still go wrong by using steroids. When you know what pitch is coming, I just think it's the single biggest advantage in professional baseball. I just do. There's not a chance in the world that these guys would have succeeded at the same rate if they were all guessing. Because hitting is guesswork. That's what it is. It's mental chess between the batter and the pitcher. What is he going to throw in this situation? Now, you can do homework and you can rely heavily on analytics, which the Astros did, probably more so than any other team in the game. I know people in their front office, and I've had conversations with them on how they use and employ analytics, and I believe that they're as invested in analytics as any team.
Totally.
So you can say, in this scenario, this pitcher is most likely to throw X in this situation. So it may give you a slight advantage, but that's nothing that every other team in baseball doesn't have. That information is available to everybody. How you use it is up to you. But when you take out the guesswork, it's not a 68% likelihood I'm going to see heat here. It's a 100% likelihood I'm getting heat.
Well, and, there's been talk about stealing signs have been a part of baseball for as long as time.
Yeah, naturally.
Right. Well, you still have to get a guy to second base. You still have to do that and then relay the message. When you switch it to putting a camera in the outfield and
a monitor.
When you put a battery in something, that's probably where we're getting out of hand.
Right. So if you're using anything that's electronic, I think I've talked to you about this, The Echoing Green, which was a book written about the Brooklyn Dodgers and how they were doing this in the 50s. They had a spyglass set up in a general manager's office, which was over the center field bleachers. And the home run fence, there was no home run fence in center field. Essentially, it was a 500-foot walk to get to the bullpen. The Brooklyn Dodgers bullpen was located straight in line with center field, or with home plate, and everybody at the end of the game would walk on the field and they would leave through that. All of the showers and locker rooms were underneath the offices out in center field. Well, they had a buzzer system where somebody would look in there, and 1 beep was for fastball, and 2 was something off speed. And because the bullpen pitchers were standing or sitting in the Dodgers bullpen, they would hear the buzzer go off that was being sent from the office upstairs. One, they would stand up. Two, they would sit down. And who in the world, unless they're looking for that, is ever going to be saying, why are they keep standing up and sitting down in the bullpen? That's what you do.
Yeah.
You're just always constantly on the move. So essentially, even though it was 500 feet away, what you couldn't see fingers, but what you could see was someone sitting up or sitting down or standing up. And so they were using something that was the electronics in that system was the relay system, the buzzer system. It was a doorbell that you would ring once or twice, and it would go down to the bullpen. They would hear it. They were the only ones that could hear it, and they were standing up or sitting down. So if like you said, if you want to steal my signs, you first have to get someone on second base, and they have to be there for a number of pitches.
Yeah.
Because, and I would say the number of pitches they have to be there is like 5 or 6. And even now, you've got guys changing the sequence. You know, it'll be on 3. I know teams that if it's an odd inning, it'll be on the 3rd sign. If it's an even inning, it'll be on the 4th sign. So they're changing it throughout the game. And it's always been incumbent on the team relaying the signs and signals to keep them hidden so they couldn't be easily deciphered. But this is just out now. This is cheating like I've never seen. Can you think of another team cheating scandal?
What about one of the Patriots?
So they took the air out of the football. That was proven statistically that his numbers were better when the football had more air in it, from first half to second half.
As far as filming other coaches during the game.
That is a problem. You know what? That's probably as big
comparable
to me because you're stealing signs. No matter how you look at it, you're. And again, we've talked about this in this age of electronics, how we don't have a better relay system from catcher to pitcher on what they're going to throw. What is this? The Flintstones era? You know, let's move up into the Jetsons era. We have all kinds of things they can do. They talked about a buzzer system. Give the catcher. Because we had talked about an earpiece, and that might not be, you know, you could jam signals. There's a million things you could do to make sure that you're the only ones receiving that communication. If you were worried about that, you could do a buzzer system where the pitcher, you know, on the palm of his throwing hand or in his glove somewhere was a device that would vibrate once, twice, or 3 times, and the catcher had a similar device, and he was able to signal it with 1, 2, or 3. There's got to be a better way. I'm not an expert on the technology, but there has to be a better way to get pitchers and catchers on the same page so they know what's coming and the other team doesn't.
So we talked about why this is, you know, complicated for baseball as far as how they hand out punishments. I do think one of the interesting parts, though, is you bring up the players' union. The players are pretty much against the Astros. I think it's like 97% of players outside of Houston think that something wrong was going on there.
Yeah, you would.
I think that's going to be really interesting to monitor as far as, and that to me, I guess, is why I'm confused baseball didn't have a better plan for all this. Because it just wasn't going to be fans. It was going to be, I don't think they anticipated the backlash from other players. And now that's what they have to deal with.
I think that was their miscalculation.
If a guy gets hit by a pitch, now it's a pitcher being punished more than a player on the Astros was punished for this whole thing.
And what they're going to do is turn the Astros into sympathetic figures, and the fans are going to resent that even more.
Exactly.
Don't make these guys victims all of a sudden, because if you do that, the outrage from the fans towards the Astros players when they're on the road, I wouldn't want to be an Astros player this year. I just wouldn't.
It's not going to. It's going to be one of those seasons, almost like an NBA season, where you're just kind of. I wouldn't be surprised if they had, not only because the lack of technology, but just a very underwhelming season for them. Because I think this is going to be a cloud that hangs over them all season.
I think the line for them is, can they get to 81 wins? Can they be above 500?
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to find out just how instrumental the cheating was to their success. I will stand by forever the fact that I think it was gravely instrumental. And here's the other thing, too. So we know the Red Sox were doing it. We know the Astros were doing it. There's a ton of speculation that the Yankees have had some kind of system in place for a very long time. Here's another thing that is, if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But when I look at what the Minnesota Twins did, and that I know of, there's nothing swirling out there that the Twins had a similar system going on. But when you look at the Twins' power numbers from last year, and you look at their roster and what they had previously done collectively in their careers, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
I wasn't buying it last year. I'm not buying it now. I do think that if the game would have come down harder on the players, it would have eliminated any cheating going forward from this point, because you'd be terrified that they could do that to you.
Right.
Because that there were no players really punished by this, let's keep the Twins from doing it this year. We haven't been caught. Nobody's looked at us yet, and we got a free pass because the Astros got one. So, I just think that they did a horrible job of dispensing justice. I don't even call this justice. It's a joke more than anything. And I think it's created a storyline that's going to linger all the way through baseball season. And we're all going to watch with fascination how the Red Sox do, how the Astros do, how certain individuals do that aren't with those teams anymore.
Oh, definitely.
What does Mookie do now? What do the Twins do? What do the Yankees do? Will we have any more of these? The home run totals in baseball have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
I don't think that's by coincidence either. I did ask somebody, how do I want to say this? I asked somebody in the Indians organization about their comfort level that it wasn't going on there.
In Cleveland?
In Cleveland. And the answer I got was, how can we be sure that it's not? We asked questions and we got answers, but we didn't get definitive, no, absolutely not, we're not doing anything like that here. Because how can you say that?
Sure.
So I think that this was a rampant problem in baseball, and we're going to find out what happens moving forward with how these teams do in the future.
Real quick, and then we got to get out of here. NFL Scouting Combine wrapped up. We talked about it last week. We were in agreement that the Browns need an offensive tackle, and we'll see which one that winds up being. Anything from this weekend change your mind about that?
No. I haven't seen or heard anything that would take me away from the thought that our first pick will be an offensive lineman. I'm still not convinced that it will be at number 10. I think if they get antsy that, the Iowa kid or the USC kid or one of these other top prospects might be taken by a team in front of them, I think they might make a move draft day to go from
up.
10 to 8. If they get antsy, if they're hearing wind that, the team in front of them is going to take an offensive lineman or whatever, they'll do their due diligence, and I think the most likelihood is that we pick at 10 and we take an offensive lineman. I still haven't ruled out the possibility that we trade up. I said this last week. I'm on record and I'll say it again. I hope we don't trade back.
Yeah, I'm seeing some trade back buzz just because there are so many offensive tackles, and the thought is, you can still get a good one if you go back a few spots and get an extra 5th-round pick or whatever. Yeah. To me, just take your guy. You've had 4 months to do this by the time the draft comes around. Find your guy, get your guy. I think the interesting thing as far as an offensive tackle for the Browns, that Mekhi Becton from Louisville, he seemed to establish himself as the clear-cut number 1.
He's the 6'7".
He's
massive.
360 pounds
massive.
And ran like a 5'1".
Yeah.
To the point that he's probably not going to be there at 10. He's probably going to be gone at 4.
Right.
And then the other interesting thing is the quarterbacks performed very well, which is good news for the Browns, because the more quarterbacks that go ahead of the Browns who don't need a quarterback, that's just more players who are sliding to you at 10. So we'll
I
see.
think it'll be an offensive lineman.
I do too.
I hope it is, because that's the area of weakness, and if they don't address that, it's look, and there are 5 moving parts to the offensive line. I think we're good on 1. We're really good on 1. I think we're okay and we're passable at 2, but I think you need each tackle, and you need another guard. And the cautionary tale here is Austin Corbett. When you take a lineman that high, you can't afford to miss on anyone with is essentially a first-round pick. You can't afford to miss on anyone there, but you really can't afford to miss when you take an offensive lineman there. It will set your franchise back a number of years, and I think that's what we're seeing.
I think the reason a lot of people fall in love with the NFL draft and do these mock drafts, I'm going to do one for WKYC here in the next couple of days, is you look at team needs, and you just like to marry team needs to prospects and things of that nature. For the Browns, it's just so glaring. It's just they need an offensive tackle. There's a plethora of good ones available, so why not go get one?
Yep, take one and be done with it.
Yep, definitely. That is going to do it for us. We will be back with you later this week, breaking down all the latest in Cleveland sports. For Jay Crawford, I'm Ben Axelrod. Thanks for watching 3 Point Play.